Marcus Chen had been having the worst day of his life when he stumbled into the alley behind the old bookstore. His job interview had gone terribly, his rent was overdue, and his girlfriend had just texted him that she was moving out. The last thing he expected was to find himself in the middle of what looked like a medieval fantasy come to life. The alley had somehow transformed into a cobblestone street, lined with ancient stone buildings. Glowing crystals floated in the air, casting an eerie blue light over everything. Marcus rubbed his eyes, certain he was hallucinating from stress, but the scene remained stubbornly real. A terrified whimper drew his attention to a small figure huddled against a stone wall. It was a child, but not quite human. Her skin had a faint shimmer to it, like scales catching light. And her eyes were a deep golden color that seemed to glow in the crystal light. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched what looked like a broken piece of jewelry. "Please don't hurt me," she whispered in a voice that somehow Marcus understood, even though she wasn't speaking English. "I didn't mean to break the pendant. I was just trying to help." 5 figures emerged from the shadows, and Marcus's blood ran cold. They wore black armor that seemed to absorb light, and their faces were hidden behind masks carved to look like skulls. Each carried a curved blade that gleamed with an unnatural red glow. "The half-breed has destroyed sacred property of the Shadow Sect," one of them said in a voice like grinding stone. "The penalty is death." The child couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She pressed herself against the wall, trembling as the 5 warriors spread out in a semicircle around her. Marcus felt something primal surge inside him, a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. "Hey!" he shouted, stepping between the child and her would-be killers. "What's wrong with you people? She's just a kid!" The masked warriors paused, seeming surprised by his sudden appearance. The leader tilted his head, studying Marcus with eyes that glowed red through his mask's eye holes. "A human," he said, with what might have been amusement. "How did you find your way into the Dragon Realm, mortal? No matter. You will die alongside the half-breed." "Dragon Realm?" Marcus's mind reeled, but he didn't step aside. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm not letting you hurt a child. Whatever she did, it couldn't be worth killing her over." The leader raised his blade. "Your ignorance of our ways does not excuse interference. Stand aside or share her fate." Marcus looked back at the little girl. She stared up at him with those golden eyes, so full of hope and fear. He thought about his own little sister back home, about all the times he'd promised to protect her from bullies and nightmares. This wasn't so different. "No," he said simply, spreading his arms wide to shield the child. "I won't move." The first warrior attacked without warning, his blade slicing through the air in a red arc aimed at Marcus's neck. Marcus had never been in a real fight in his life, but somehow his body moved on its own, ducking under the strike and grabbing the warrior's wrist. The blade passed so close to his head that he felt the heat of it singe his hair. The second and third attackers came at him from both sides. Marcus spun, using the first warrior as a shield, and felt the satisfying impact as their blades struck their ally instead of him. The warrior screamed and dissolved into shadow, his armor clattering to the ground empty. "Impossible!" the leader hissed. "You move like a trained fighter, but you have no combat aura. What are you?" Marcus didn't answer because he didn't know. His body kept moving in ways he'd never learned, deflecting strikes and finding openings he shouldn't have been able to see. When the fourth warrior thrust his blade at the child behind him, Marcus somehow twisted and caught the weapon with his bare hand. The metal should have cut through his palm like butter, but instead, it shattered like glass against his skin. The remaining 3 warriors backed away, their red eyes wide with shock. "He bears no dragon mark," one of them whispered, "yet he fights with the strength of the ancient guardians." "Kill him!" the leader roared, "before he fully awakens!" All 3 rushed him at once, their blades weaving patterns of red light in the air. Marcus felt time slow around him as something deep inside his mind clicked into place. He could see every angle of their attacks, predict every movement before they made it. His body became a weapon, flowing like water around their strikes, while his hands moved with deadly precision. He grabbed the leader's sword arm and twisted, hearing bones snap. A quick elbow strike shattered the warrior's mask, revealing a face that was more skull than flesh. The warrior screamed and lunged with his remaining hand, but Marcus caught his throat and squeezed. The creature turned to shadow and dissipated. The last two warriors looked at each other, then at Marcus, then threw down their weapons and fled into the night. Marcus stood there panting, his hands shaking as he looked at the broken weapons scattered around his feet. The little girl emerged from behind him, her golden eyes wide with amazement. "You saved me," she whispered. "But how? You're human, but you fought like a true guardian." "I don't know," Marcus admitted, kneeling down to her level. "Are you okay? What's your name?" "Lyrelay," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I'm a half-dragon. My mother was human like you. The Shadow Sect has been hunting mixed bloods like me for centuries." Marcus looked at the broken jewelry in her hands. "What's that?" "A protection pendant my grandmother gave me. It was supposed to hide my dragon heritage, but it broke when I tried to use it to help some injured birds." She sniffled. "The Shadow Sect can track dragon magic. That's how they found me." "Well, they're gone now," Marcus said gently. "Where are your parents? Can I take you home?" Lyrelay's face crumpled. "They're dead. The Shadow Sect killed them last month. I've been hiding in the old temple ruins, but I can't stay hidden forever." Marcus felt his heart break for this child who had lost everything. "What about other dragons? Surely someone would take you in?" "The pure-blood dragons don't trust half-breeds," she explained. "They think we're weak because of our human blood. And humans fear us because of our dragon heritage. I don't belong anywhere." "That's not true," Marcus said firmly. "Everyone belongs somewhere." A new voice spoke from the darkness. "Indeed they do. The question is where you belong, Guardian." Marcus spun around to see a figure stepping out of the shadows. This newcomer was clearly not human, but neither was he one of the black-armored killers. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with silver hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes like molten gold. His skin had the same subtle shimmer as Lyrelay's, but more pronounced, and when he moved, Marcus caught glimpses of scales along his neck and hands. "Lord Draconis!" Lyrelay gasped, immediately bowing her head. "I didn't know you were in the city." The tall figure's eyes remained fixed on Marcus. "I felt the awakening from across the realm. A new guardian has been born, it seems. Tell me, human, what is your name?" "Marcus Chen," he replied cautiously. "And I'm not a guardian of anything. I just couldn't stand by and watch a child get murdered." Draconis smiled, revealing teeth slightly sharper than human normal. "That is precisely what makes a true guardian. Not power or training, but the willingness to sacrifice oneself for the innocent." He gestured to the broken weapons on the ground. "You destroyed 3 Shadow Sect assassins with no formal training and no understanding of your abilities. That is no small feat." "I don't understand any of this," Marcus said. "A few hours ago I was worried about paying rent, and now I'm apparently in some kind of magical realm fighting monsters to save a dragon child." "The dragon realm exists parallel to your human world," Draconis explained. "Sometimes the barrier's thin, and people cross over. Most humans who arrive here are quickly overwhelmed and die. The fact that you not only survived but awakened guardian abilities suggests you have dragon blood in your ancestry." Marcus shook his head. "That's impossible. I know my family tree going back 4 generations. We're all perfectly normal humans." "Dragon bloodlines can remain dormant for centuries," Draconis said. "They often awaken in times of great need, when someone with the right heart faces a situation that demands heroic action. He studied Marcus carefully. Your dragon heritage is very old, very diluted, but undeniably present. The guardian spirit recognized this and awakened your dormant abilities. Guardian spirit. Marcus felt like his head was spinning. Long ago, when the first dragons and humans made peace, they created a special order of protectors, Lorelei explained. The true guardians were chosen from both races, sworn to protect the innocent and maintain the balance between worlds. But they all died out hundreds of years ago. Or so we thought, Draconis said meaningfully. It appears the guardian spirits have been waiting for the right person to return to the role. He looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. The question now is what you will do with this awakening. Marcus looked down at Lorelei, who was watching him with those hopeful golden eyes. What happened to her village? Her people? The shadow sect has been growing bolder, Draconis said grimly. They seek to eliminate all mixed heritage individuals, claiming that human blood weakens the dragon line. It is an ancient prejudice that has led to much suffering. And the pure-blood dragons just let this happen? Draconis' expression darkened. The Dragon Council is divided on the issue. Some believe the shadow sect goes too far, but others quietly agree with their basic philosophy. Half-dragons like young Lorelei find themselves caught between two worlds, welcomed by neither. Marcus felt anger building in his chest. That's completely wrong. She's just a child. She didn't choose her parents. No, she did not, Draconis agreed. But perhaps she chose her protector. I'm not protector material, Marcus protested. I'm just a guy who couldn't find a job and happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. The guardian spirits do not make mistakes, Draconis said simply. They have chosen you for a reason. The question is whether you will accept their gift and the responsibilities that come with it. Lorelei tugged on Marcus's sleeve. The shadow sect will come back with more warriors. They always do. And next time they'll be ready for someone with guardian abilities. What does that mean? Marcus asked. Draconis' expression grew serious. It means they will send a dragon slayer. Ancient weapons and techniques specifically designed to kill those with dragon heritage, no matter how powerful. Marcus felt cold dread settle in his stomach. How long do we have? Perhaps a day, maybe 2. The shadow sect does not tolerate failure. Marcus looked around at the strange crystal-lit street, at the ancient buildings that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. He thought about his old life, his failed job interview, his empty apartment. Then he looked at Lorelei, who was trying so hard to be brave, despite everything she'd lost. If I stay, he said slowly, if I accept this guardian thing, what would that mean exactly? It would mean dedicating your life to protecting those who cannot protect themselves, Draconis said. It would mean learning to master abilities you never knew you had. It would mean making enemies of some very powerful and dangerous beings. And if I don't? Draconis gestured to Lorelei. Then children like her will continue to die. And the shadow sect will grow stronger until they decide to expand their purge to other realms, your world included. Marcus closed his eyes, feeling the weight of an impossible choice. When he opened them again, his resolve had hardened. Then I guess I don't really have a choice, do I? He knelt down and took Lorelei's hands in his. I promise you, no one is going to hurt you while I'm around, and I'm going to make sure you find somewhere safe to belong. Tears filled her golden eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. Thank you, Guardian Marcus. Just Marcus, he corrected gently. Draconis smiled approvingly. The guardian spirits have chosen well, but we must move quickly. I know of a safe place where you can begin your training, but we must reach it before the dragon slayers arrive. Training for what exactly? Marcus asked as they began walking deeper into the crystal-lit city. For the hardest fight of your life, Draconis replied. The Shadow Sect will not simply give up because you defeated 3 assassins. They will see your awakening as a threat to everything they believe. They will come for you with everything they have. As they walked through the strange, beautiful streets of the Dragon Realm, Marcus tried to process everything that had happened. Just hours ago, his biggest worry had been finding a new job. Now he was apparently a magical guardian responsible for protecting innocent lives in a world he never knew existed. But when he looked down at Lyralee walking beside him, her small hand trustingly in his, he knew he'd made the right choice. Whatever came next, whatever enemies they faced, he wouldn't let anyone hurt this child or others like her. The guardian spirits had awakened something inside him, something that felt both foreign and completely natural. He could feel new strength flowing through his body, new awareness sharpening his senses. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Lord Draconis, Lyralee said softly as they walked. Will the other dragons accept Guardian Marcus, even though he's mostly human? Draconis was quiet for a long moment. That remains to be seen, little one. The old prejudices run deep, and many will see his human heritage as a weakness rather than a strength. But the guardian spirits chose him, she pointed out. Indeed they did, and perhaps that will be enough to change some minds. Or perhaps it will only make his enemies more determined to destroy him. Draconis looked at Marcus. Are you prepared for that possibility? Marcus thought about it seriously. I won't lie. The idea of having an entire sect of assassins after me isn't exactly appealing. But I can't live with myself if I walk away and let innocent people die. Even if standing up for them makes you a target of forces you barely understand? Especially then, Marcus said firmly. That's what bullies count on, isn't it? That good people will stay quiet and look the other way to avoid trouble. Well, I'm done looking the other way. Draconis nodded approvingly. Spoken like a true guardian. Your training will begin at dawn. As they made their way through the mystical city, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn he could never come back from. But looking at Lyralee's grateful smile, he found he didn't want to come back. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The real test would come when the Dragon Slayers arrived. The sanctuary hidden in the Whispering Mountains took Marcus's breath away. Ancient towers carved directly from the mountain stone spiraled toward the sky, their surfaces covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the morning light. Crystalline bridges connected the towers, suspended impossibly in midair with no visible support. Welcome to the Guardian's Haven, Draconis said as they approached the main entrance. This place has stood empty for 300 years. Waiting for a new guardian to claim it. Marcus stared up at the magnificent structure. This was all built for the Guardians? Built by them, actually, Draconis corrected. Each Guardian added something to the sanctuary. Towers, training grounds, libraries of knowledge. It was meant to be a place where the innocent could find refuge and where new Guardians could learn their purpose. Lyralee ran ahead to touch the massive doors, which were carved with images of dragons and humans working together. The moment her fingers made contact, the doors began to glow with warm, golden light. It recognizes her, Draconis observed with surprise. The sanctuary knows she belongs here. The doors swung open silently, revealing a vast hall filled with floating lights that danced through the air like living stars. The walls were covered with murals depicting the history of the Guardians, showing their greatest victories and most noble sacrifices. This is incredible, Marcus whispered, turning in a slow circle to take it all in. But I still don't understand why I was chosen. There have to be other people with dragon blood. Why me? Because the guardian spirits look for more than just bloodline, a new voice said from the shadows. They look for character. A figure stepped into the light, and Marcus's first thought was that this must be what angels looked like. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that seemed to have light woven through it and eyes the color of starlight. Her skin had the same subtle scale pattern as Dracona's, but hers shimmered with an opalescent quality that made her seem almost ethereal. "Guardian Marcus," she said formally, inclining her head. "I am Seraphina, keeper of the haven. I have maintained this sanctuary since the last guardian fell in battle 3 centuries ago." "You've been here alone for 300 years?" Marcus asked, amazed. "Time moves differently for those of us with ancient dragon blood," she explained. "I have waited patiently for the spirits to choose a new guardian. Though I admit, I did not expect them to choose someone so young and untrained." Marcus felt a flash of defensiveness. "I managed to take down 3 Shadow Sect assassins without any training at all." Seraphina smiled, and it transformed her ethereal beauty into something more approachable. "Indeed you did. That is precisely what convinced me you might actually survive the trials ahead." Her expression grew serious. "But raw talent will not be enough against what is coming. The Shadow Sect has had 3 centuries to grow in power and influence. Their dragon slayers are not merely skilled warriors, they are walking weapons designed for one purpose. Which is? To kill dragons, and by extension, anyone with significant dragon heritage." She gestured for them to follow her deeper into the sanctuary. "Come. If we are to prepare you for what is coming, we must begin immediately." The training hall was a circular chamber with walls of polished black stone. The moment Marcus stepped inside, he felt something change in the air around him. It was as if the room itself was alive and aware of his presence. "This is where every guardian before you learned to master their abilities," Seraphina said. "The chamber will respond to your power and help you understand what you are capable of." "What exactly am I capable of?" Marcus asked. "Last night I did things I've never learned, moved in ways that should have been impossible." "The Guardian Awakening grants several gifts," Draconis explained. "Enhanced strength and speed, heightened reflexes, and most importantly, combat intuition. Your body now knows how to fight even when your mind does not." Seraphina circled around Marcus, studying him like a trainer evaluating a new student. "Show me your fighting stance." Marcus felt foolish, but he tried to remember how his body had moved the night before. The moment he shifted into what felt like a ready position, the training chamber responded. Targets made of hardened light materialized around the room, each one moving in different patterns. "Strike them," Seraphina commanded. "Don't think, just react." Marcus lunged forward, his body moving with the same fluid precision he'd experienced during the fight with the assassins. His fists struck target after target, each one dissolving in a burst of golden light. When the last target vanished, he realized he wasn't even breathing hard. "Impressive," Seraphina admitted. "Your guardian instincts are very strong, but instincts alone will not save you when you face a dragon slayer." She waved her hand, and new targets appeared. These ones moved faster and struck back when attacked. Marcus found himself dodging and weaving, but several of the light constructs managed to land hits that sent jolts of pain through his body. "A dragon slayer will not simply stand there and let you hit him," Seraphina said, as Marcus staggered back from a particularly hard strike. "They are trained specifically to counter guardian abilities. They know all our strengths and all our weaknesses." Marcus wiped blood from his lip, where one of the constructs had clipped him. "Then how do I beat them?" "By becoming something they've never seen before," she replied. Previous guardians relied heavily on their dragon heritage, using flame breath, natural armor, and enhanced healing. But you are different. Your dragon blood is so diluted that those abilities may never manifest." "That sounds like a disadvantage," Marcus said. "Does it?" Draconis asked thoughtfully. Or does it simply mean you'll have to find a different way to fight? A way the Dragon Slayers won't expect? Over the next several hours, they put Marcus through a series of increasingly difficult training exercises. He learned to enhance his speed by channeling his dragon heritage through his legs, to strengthen his strikes by focusing energy through his arms, and most surprisingly, to sense the emotions and intentions of others. Every dragon can feel the life force of living beings, Serafina explained as Marcus successfully identified which of several hidden volunteers was planning to attack him. It's how we track prey and avoid threats. Your version of this ability is uniquely sensitive to hostile intent. Lyrelay watched from the sidelines, occasionally offering encouragement when Marcus struggled with a particular technique. During a break, she approached him with a worried expression. "Guardian Marcus," she said softly, "what if the Dragon Slayers come before you're ready?" Marcus knelt down to her level, surprised to realize how natural the title was starting to feel. "Then I'll face them as I am. I promise to protect you, Lyrelay. That promise doesn't come with conditions." "But you could die," she whispered. "Maybe," he admitted. "But if I run away, you'll definitely die. And so will other children like you. That's not acceptable to me." Serafina, who had been listening, nodded approvingly. That is the mindset of a true guardian, willing to face impossible odds rather than abandon the innocent. Their conversation was interrupted by a deep, resonant horn that seemed to come from the mountain itself. Draconis immediately tensed, his golden eyes scanning the sky beyond the chamber's crystal windows. "What was that?" Marcus asked. "The warning horn," Serafina said grimly. "Someone approaches the sanctuary. Someone uninvited." They rushed to the observation deck, a platform that jutted out from the highest tower. In the distance, Marcus could see dark shapes moving against the sky. As they grew closer, he realized they were riders on what looked like mechanical dragons made of black metal and shadow. "Dragon Slayers," Draconis confirmed. "3 of them, mounted on shadow drakes. They found us faster than expected." Marcus counted the approaching figures. Each rider was encased in armor that seemed to absorb light, and their mounts moved with an unnatural, predatory grace that made his skin crawl. "Can we fight them here?" he asked. "Not without risking damage to the sanctuary," Serafina said. "This place has sheltered the innocent for over 1,000 years. I will not see it become a battlefield." "Then we meet them outside," Marcus said, surprised by his own calm. "Away from the sanctuary, away from Lyrelay." "Marcus, you've had less than a day of training," Draconis protested. "These are Dragon Slayers, not common assassins. Each one has spent decades perfecting the art of killing beings like us." "Then I'll have to be better than they expect," Marcus replied. He turned to Serafina. "Is there anything else you can teach me in the next few minutes that might help?" She studied him for a moment, then nodded. "One thing. The most dangerous ability a Dragon Slayer possesses is their null field. They can temporarily suppress dragon magic in a localized area, making their opponents vulnerable. How do I counter that?" "You don't," she said simply. "You fight through it. Your guardian abilities come from more than just dragon magic. They come from will, from determination, from the absolute refusal to let innocence suffer. No null field can suppress that." The shadow drakes landed on the plateau below the sanctuary with earth-shaking impacts. Their riders dismounted, each one drawing weapons that gleamed with an ominous red light. Marcus could feel the menace radiating from them even at this distance. "Stay with Serafina," Marcus told Lyrelay. "No matter what happens, don't leave the sanctuary." "I don't want you to go," she said, tears starting to form in her golden eyes. Marcus hugged her briefly. "I have to, but I promise I'll come back." As he prepared to leave the sanctuary, Draconis caught his arm. "Wait, take this." He held out a pendant similar to the one Lyrelay had worn, but this one was made of what looked like crystallized starlight. It won't hide your nature, but it will help you maintain connection to your guardian abilities, even in a null field. Marcus put the pendant around his neck and immediately felt a subtle change in his awareness. The world seemed sharper, more vivid, as if he was seeing it through enhanced senses. "Thank you," he said simply. "Don't thank me yet," Draconis replied grimly. "Survive this, and then we'll talk." Marcus made his way down to the plateau where the 3 dragon slayers waited. As he approached, he could see them more clearly. Each one was tall and powerfully built, their armor covered in etched runes that seemed to writhe and shift in the light. Their faces were hidden behind masks that looked like stylized dragon skulls. "So," the center figure said in a voice like grinding metal, "the new guardian reveals himself. You are younger than expected." "And you are exactly as ugly as I imagined," Marcus replied, surprising himself with his boldness. The dragon slayer laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Spirit, good. It will make your death more satisfying." He gestured to his companions. "I am Vorthak, first slayer of the Shadow Sect. These are my brothers, Goran and Malthius. We have come to end the Guardian line permanently." "The Guardian line ended with me began," Marcus said, settling into the fighting stance he'd practiced. "You're 300 years too late." "Indeed? Then let us see what the spirits have awakened in you." Vorthak raised his weapon, a massive sword with a blade that seemed to be made of crystallized darkness. The moment he did, Marcus felt something horrible happen to the air around him. It was as if all the energy had been sucked out of the atmosphere, leaving him feeling drained and disconnected. The null field, he realized. This was what Seraphina had warned him about. "Exactly," Vorthak said with satisfaction. "Within this field, your dragon heritage is useless. You are nothing but a human with delusions of heroism." The 3 slayers attacked in perfect coordination, their weapons weaving patterns of dark energy as they struck. Marcus found himself struggling just to keep up. Without his enhanced reflexes and strength, he was badly outmatched. A blow from Goran's mace sent him staggering backward, pain exploding through his ribs. Malthius's chain blade wrapped around his ankle, sending him crashing to the ground. As Vorthak's sword descended toward his head, Marcus thought desperately about everything he had to lose. Lyralai's face flashed through his mind, her golden eyes filled with trust and hope. All the children like her who would die if he failed here. The future where the Shadow Sect expanded their purge to other worlds, including his own. Something ignited inside him, something that had nothing to do with dragon magic or inherited abilities. It was pure human determination, the refusal to give up when everything was on the line. Marcus rolled aside at the last second, Vorthak's blade striking stone instead of flesh. He grabbed a handful of rock chips and flung them at Malthius's mask, causing the slayer to stumble. In that moment of distraction, Marcus lunged forward and delivered a devastating uppercut that lifted the armored figure off his feet. "Impossible!" Vorthak snarled. "The null field should have stripped you of all supernatural ability." Marcus wiped blood from his mouth and smiled grimly. "Who said anything about supernatural? I'm just a guy who's really tired of bullies." He fought like he never had before, using every dirty trick and desperate maneuver he could think of. When Goran swung his mace, Marcus ducked under it and used the Slayer's own momentum to send him crashing into a boulder. When Malthius tried to entangle him with the chain blade again, Marcus grabbed the chain and used it to pull his opponent into range for a knee strike that crumpled his armor. But it was Vorthak who proved the real challenge. The first Slayer was not only skilled but intelligent, adapting to Marcus's unorthodox fighting style with frightening speed. His dark sword seemed to anticipate Marcus's movements, forcing him to stay constantly in motion to avoid being skewered. You fight well for a human, Vorthak admitted, as they circled each other warily. But you cannot maintain this pace forever. The null field drains your strength even as it suppresses your abilities. Marcus could feel the truth of that statement. His legs felt like lead and his vision was starting to blur around the edges. But every time he thought about giving up, he remembered why he was fighting. Maybe not, he panted. But I don't have to beat you forever. I just have to beat you today. With a roar of fury and determination, Marcus launched himself at Vorthak in a final desperate assault. He absorbed the Slayer's counterattack, letting the dark blade slice across his shoulder as he got inside the weapon's reach. His hands closed around Vorthak's throat, and he squeezed with every ounce of strength he had left. The first Slayer's mask cracked under the pressure, revealing a face that was more shadow than flesh. His red eyes widened in disbelief as Marcus's grip tightened. "This is for every innocent child you've murdered," Marcus growled. Vorthak dissolved into darkness, his scream echoing across the plateau as his physical form scattered to the winds. The null field collapsed with his death, and Marcus felt his guardian abilities surge back to life just in time to deal with the remaining two Slayers. Goran and Maltheus, seeing their leader destroyed, tried to retreat to their shadow drakes. But Marcus was faster now, his speed enhanced by renewed dragon heritage. He caught Goran before the Slayer could reach his mount, delivering a strike that shattered the armor and the creature within it. Maltheus made it to his drake but found Marcus waiting for him there. "Please," the Slayer gasped as Marcus's hands closed around his throat. "The Shadow Sect will send others. You cannot protect everyone." "Maybe not," Marcus agreed, "but I can start with protecting her." The last Dragon Slayer joined his brothers in dissolution, and Marcus collapsed to his knees as exhaustion finally caught up with him. The Shadow Drakes, now masterless, let out keening wails before taking flight and disappearing into the distance. From the sanctuary above, he could hear Lyrelay calling his name. He looked up to see her running down the mountain path with Draconas and Seraphina close behind. The relief and joy on her face made every moment of pain worth it. "You did it!" she cried, throwing her arms around him. "You kept your promise?" "The first of many, I hope," Marcus said, holding her close. But even as he celebrated this victory, he knew it was only the beginning. The Shadow Sect would send more Slayers, and each battle would be harder than the last. But for now, Lyrelay was safe. And that was enough. 3 months had passed since the battle with the Dragon Slayers, and Marcus had grown into his role as guardian in ways he never expected. The sanctuary had become a haven for dozens of mixed-heritage children who had fled the Shadow Sect's expanding purge. Each morning, he woke to the sounds of young voices echoing through the ancient halls. Lyrelay had appointed herself as his unofficial assistant, helping to coordinate the daily routines and teaching the newer arrivals about sanctuary life. She had grown more confident and outgoing, her traumatic encounter with the assassins now balanced by the security of knowing she was protected. "Guardian Marcus," she said, approaching him as he practiced his morning forms in the training chamber. "There's something you need to see." Her tone was serious enough to make him pause mid-strike. "What is it?" "A messenger arrived during the night. From the Dragon Council." Marcus felt his stomach clench. The Dragon Council had been conspicuously silent since his awakening as a guardian. He'd hoped that meant they were simply ignoring him. But apparently that was wishful thinking. The messenger was waiting in the sanctuary's great hall, a pure-blood dragon in human form who radiated ancient power and barely concealed disdain. His scaled skin was deep emerald green, and his vertical pupils tracked Marcus's every movement like a predator evaluating prey. "Guardian," the messenger said with a slight bow that somehow managed to convey mockery rather than respect. "I am Veltrix, voice of the Dragon Council. I bring a summons." Marcus crossed his arms. "A summons to what?" The Council requires your immediate presence to answer charges of unauthorized sanctuary, harboring of fugitives, and interference in Shadow Sect operations. Valthrix's smile revealed teeth far too sharp for his human form. Failure to comply will result in the revocation of your guardian status and the forcible closure of this sanctuary. Fugitives? Marcus felt anger building in his chest. These are children who were marked for death for the crime of existing. These are half-breeds whose very existence threatens the purity of the dragon bloodline, Valthrix replied coldly. The Shadow Sect may use extreme methods, but their goals align with the Council's interest in maintaining racial integrity. Marcus took a step forward, and the messenger instinctively stepped back. Even in human form, Valthrix could sense the predatory aura that Marcus had learned to project. "Let me make something very clear," Marcus said quietly. "These children are under my protection. If the Dragon Council has a problem with that, they can discuss it with me directly. But I'm not abandoning them to come answer some trumped-up charges." "The Council anticipated your defiance," Valthrix said, producing a scroll sealed with what looked like crystallized flame. "This is a formal challenge to single combat. If you refuse to appear voluntarily, Champion Drakmor will come here and settle the matter by force." Marcus took the scroll, feeling its supernatural weight. The moment his fingers touched it, images flashed through his mind. A massive dragon with scales like polished obsidian, breathing fire that could melt stone, wielding ancient magic that made the Shadow Sect assassins look like children with wooden swords. "Champion Drakmor," he said slowly. "I take it he's not interested in negotiating. The champion believes that humans with pretensions to guardian status are an affront to dragon heritage," Valthrix replied with obvious satisfaction. He volunteered personally to correct this aberration. Seraphina, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. "You cannot seriously be considering this, Marcus. Drakmor is one of the oldest and most powerful dragons alive. He has crushed rebellions, ended wars, and slaughtered armies. No guardian in history has faced a challenge of this magnitude." Marcus looked around the great hall at the children who had gathered to listen. Lyrelay stood among them, her golden eyes wide with fear and concern. Behind her were dozens of other young faces, all looking to him for protection and leadership. "What happens to them if I refuse the challenge?" he asked Valthrix. "The Council will consider them enemies of the state," the messenger replied matter-of-factly. "They will be handed over to the Shadow Sect for proper disposal." "And if I accept and lose?" "The same outcome, but with honor satisfied." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing the impossible situation. Finally, he handed the scroll back to Valthrix. "Tell the Council I'll be there at the appointed time, but I have conditions." Valthrix looked surprised. "You are hardly in a position to make demands, human." "If I win," Marcus continued as if the messenger hadn't spoken, "the Dragon Council formally recognizes the sanctuary and grants protection to all children of mixed heritage. No more cooperation with the Shadow Sect. No more turning a blind eye to genocide. And if you lose?" Marcus met his eyes steadily. "Then I won't be around to worry about the consequences, will I?" After Valthrix departed, Draconis emerged from the shadows where he'd been observing. His expression was grim. "You realize this is exactly what the Council wanted," he said. "They've found a way to eliminate you without directly confronting a guardian. Champion Drakmor has never lost a formal challenge." "Then I'll have to be his first defeat," Marcus replied with more confidence than he felt. Seraphina shook her head. "Marcus, I've known Drakmor for over 6 centuries. He is not merely powerful, he is cunning and utterly ruthless. He will use every advantage, exploit every weakness, and show no mercy. Good thing I'm not planning to show him any either." The week leading up to the challenge passed in a blur of intensive training. Serafina pushed Marcus harder than ever before, forcing him to master techniques he'd only glimpsed in his earlier sessions. Draconis shared ancient knowledge about dragon combat, teaching him the theoretical weaknesses of even the most powerful opponents. But it was Lyra Lai who provided the most valuable insight. "You're thinking about this wrong," she said one evening as they sat together, watching the sunset from the sanctuary's highest balcony. "Everyone keeps talking about how powerful Champion Drakmor is, how ancient and skilled and dangerous. That's because he is all of those things," Marcus pointed out. "But so were the Dragon Slayers," she replied. "And you beat them not by being more powerful, but by being different, by fighting in ways they didn't expect." Marcus considered that. "What are you suggesting?" "Champion Drakmor has spent centuries fighting other dragons, defeating challengers who tried to match his strength with their own. But you're not a dragon, not really. You're something new." "Something new," Marcus repeated thoughtfully. "The guardian spirits chose you for a reason," Lyrelay continued. "Maybe that reason isn't to be the most powerful guardian ever. Maybe it's to be the most unexpected one." The day of the challenge arrived with ominous portents. The sky above the Dragon Council's ancient amphitheater was dark with storm clouds that crackled with unnatural lightning. Thousands of dragons in both human and true form had gathered to witness what many expected to be the end of the Guardian lineage. Marcus entered the arena wearing simple leather armor and carrying no weapons except his Guardian pendant and his own determination. Across the vast space, Champion Drakmor waited in his true form, a mountain of black scales and predatory grace that made the air itself seem to tremble. The ancient dragon was even larger than Marcus had imagined, easily 100 feet from nose to tail. His eyes were like molten gold, ancient and cruel, and when he spoke, his voice shook the stone beneath their feet. "So," Drakmor rumbled, "the human who thinks himself a guardian. You are smaller than I expected." "And you're exactly as arrogant as I was told," Marcus replied, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. Drakmor's laughter was like an avalanche. "Arrogance? Child, I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall, watched lesser dragons prostrate themselves before my power. You are an insect pretending to be an eagle." "Maybe," Marcus agreed. "But this insect has already killed 3 dragon slayers and is still standing here." The great dragon's eyes narrowed. "Luck and circumstance. Let us see how you fare against a true challenge." The formal combat began with Drakmor's flame breath, a torrent of fire so intense it turned sand to glass and made the air shimmer with heat. Marcus threw himself aside, rolling behind one of the arena's stone pillars as the flames washed over his previous position. "Running already," Drakmor taunted, his massive tail sweeping around to demolish the pillar and force Marcus back into the open. "How very human of you!" Marcus sprinted across the arena floor, using his enhanced speed to stay ahead of the dragon's claws and teeth. But he couldn't run forever, and Drakmor was too intelligent to be drawn into a simple chase. The ancient dragon began using his magic, summoning barriers of stone to cut off escape routes and creating whirlwinds to knock Marcus off balance. "You cannot win by avoidance," Drakmor called out as his claws carved furrows in the stone where Marcus had been standing moments before. "Eventually, you must stand and fight." "Who says I'm avoiding anything?" Marcus called back. "I'm learning." And he was. With each attack, he was studying Drakmor's patterns, noting the slight delay between the dragon's magical gestures and their effects, observing how the massive creature had to shift his weight to bring different weapons to bear. Most importantly, he was remembering Lyralay's words. "Don't try to be more powerful. Be unexpected." Marcus suddenly changed tactics, sprinting directly toward Drakmor instead of away. The dragon, caught off guard by this apparent suicide charge, reared back to deliver a devastating blow with his front claws. At the last second, Marcus slid between Drakmoor's legs, using his smaller size to get underneath the dragon's guard. From this position, he could see something that might not be visible from a distance. Ancient scars crisscrossed Drakmoor's belly scales, evidence of old battles and near defeats. And there, just below the dragon's heart, was a patch of scales that looked different from the rest. Newer, slightly paler, as if they were regrowth from a serious wound. Marcus drove his fist into that vulnerable spot with every ounce of guardian strength he possessed. Drakmoor's roar of pain and surprise shook dust from the amphitheater's ancient stones as the dragon staggered backward. "Impossible!" Drakmoor gasped. "That wound healed centuries ago. How did you know?" "Lucky guess," Marcus replied. But now he had a strategy. Instead of trying to match Drakmoor's overwhelming power, he focused on speed and precision, striking at specific points he identified through careful observation. A nick between two scales here, a pressure point where wing met body there. Each individual strike was small, but together they began to add up. Drakmoor, enraged by this unorthodox approach, abandoned his careful tactics and began attacking with raw fury. But fury made him predictable, and predictability was something Marcus could exploit. When the dragon lunged with snapping jaws, Marcus grabbed one of his horns and used it to vault onto Drakmoor's head. When Drakmoor tried to shake him off, Marcus scrambled down to the dragon's neck and began striking at the nerve clusters he could feel beneath the scales. "Fight like a warrior, not a parasite!" Drakmoor bellowed, trying to reach back and grab his elusive opponent. "I'll fight however I need to in order to protect innocent children," Marcus shot back, his fists finding another vulnerable nerve cluster that made the dragon's left wing spasm. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Marcus sustained numerous injuries as Drakmoor's claws and teeth found their mark, but his guardian healing allowed him to stay mobile despite the damage. More importantly, his unconventional attacks were having a cumulative effect on the ancient dragon. Drakmoor was no longer moving with his previous fluid grace. His attacks were becoming increasingly erratic, as Marcus's strikes to nerve clusters and pressure points disrupted his coordination. The great dragon was beginning to realize that his vast experience fighting other dragons had not prepared him for an opponent who fought like a human. "You have no honor!" Drakmoor snarled, as Marcus once again evaded a flame breath by the narrowest of margins. "No dignity. You fight like a scavenger." "I fight like someone who has something worth protecting," Marcus replied, spotting another opportunity and taking it. This time, his strike found a pressure point at the base of Drakmoor's skull, and the dragon's coordination problems became even more pronounced. "What do you protect that is worth this humiliation?" Drakmoor demanded, his movements now noticeably unsteady. Marcus thought of Lyraleigh's face, of all the children back at the sanctuary who were counting on him to return safely. "The future," he said simply. With a final surge of effort, Marcus climbed to the top of Drakmoor's head and positioned himself directly between the dragon's horns. From here, he could reach the cluster of nerve endings that controlled the dragon's higher brain functions. "Yield," he commanded, his hands positioned to deliver a strike that would render Drakmoor unconscious if necessary. The challenge is over. For a long moment, the ancient dragon remained motionless. Then, slowly, his great head lowered to the arena floor in submission. "I yield," Drakmoor said quietly, his voice barely audible over the stunned silence of the watching crowd. "The Guardian is victorious." Marcus climbed down from the dragon's head, his legs shaking with exhaustion. Around the amphitheater, thousands of spectators were struggling to process what they had just witnessed. A human with diluted dragon blood had just defeated one of the most powerful dragons in existence. the head of the Dragon Council, an ancient female with scales like polished silver, descended to the arena floor. Her expression was unreadable as she approached Marcus. "Guardian," she said formally, "you have proven your worth in single combat against our champion. The Council recognizes your status and grants sanctuary protection to all children of mixed heritage under your care." Marcus nodded, too tired to feel triumphant. "And the Shadow Sect?" "Will no longer receive Council support or cooperation," she confirmed. "Their activities are hereby declared contrary to Council interests." As the crowd began to disperse, Drakmor approached Marcus in his human form. The ancient dragon moved stiffly, evidence of the damage done during their battle. "You fought well," he admitted grudgingly. "I have never faced an opponent who used such creative tactics." "I had a good teacher," Marcus replied, thinking of Lirelai's advice. "She taught me that being different isn't always a weakness." Drakmor studied him for a moment. "Perhaps the guardian spirits chose more wisely than I believed. You may not be the strongest guardian in history, but you may be exactly what was needed for this time." The journey back to the sanctuary felt different than the trip out. Marcus was returning not just as a guardian, but as a recognized protector with the backing of the Dragon Council itself. The children would be safe now, officially protected, rather than merely hidden. Lirelai was waiting at the sanctuary gates when he arrived, and the moment she saw him, her face lit up with joy and relief. "You did it," she said, running to embrace him. "I knew you would." "We did it," Marcus corrected. "Your advice about being unexpected made all the difference." That evening, as he sat in the great hall surrounded by all the children who now had a true sanctuary, Marcus reflected on the path that had brought him here. A few months ago, he had been a failed job applicant with no direction in life. Now he was a guardian, protector of the innocent, and apparently someone capable of defeating ancient dragons in single combat. The guardian spirits had chosen well, he realized, not because he was the strongest or the most skilled, but because he was willing to become whatever was necessary to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. "What happens now?" Lirelai asked, settling beside him. Marcus looked around at the faces of all the children who depended on him, then out at the vast world beyond the sanctuary walls, where other innocents might need protection. "Now we build something better," he said. "A place where being different is celebrated instead of feared, where children like you can grow up safe and strong." And when new threats come, Marcus smiled, feeling the guardian pendant warm against his chest. "Then we'll face them together. That's what families do." Outside, the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Shadow Sect was probably planning new attacks, other enemies were gathering their forces, and countless challenges lay ahead. But for tonight, the children were safe. The sanctuary stood protected, and the guardian line continued. It was enough. It was everything.